That's exactly what, it's kind of confusing to me. We have a pilot program that's associated with a particular neighborhood, and we have a draft ordinance. I'd like a little more clarity on, what is the draft ordinance going to look like? Is it going to include the pilot program? And then when you guys talk about further neighborhoods looking at, say, detached units, going neighborhood by neighborhood as a legislative process, is there going to be no expectation that we're going to discuss the topic of detached units within other neighborhoods at this time?
No, this is a staff proposal. The commission can develop whatever recommendations you think are appropriate.
Okay, thanks.
Where does feedback from MNAC come back? You take their meeting, their feedback, does it come back to this body?
Yes, that's our intent, is to meet with MNAC. Once we have a more concrete proposal, we would meet with MNAC and preview it with them and provide you with their comments as well.
Yeah, thank you. For the detached ADUs, just for folks who don't have it in front of them, the proposed change would be to allow single-family zoned areas on a per-neighborhood basis by legislative action, such as what's happened in the Happy Valley neighborhood. And I think that's an exciting thing that has happened, and it's not a norm in most communities. Social and political science research shows that a lot of times a community will, and a person will have a value that doesn't necessarily, when it's ephemeral, doesn't necessarily align with when it's put to the test in their own neighborhood or in their own maybe environmental practices. And so while I understand and value the weight of our neighborhood associations, and I think they have a really important place, I don't believe that we should have zoning for detached ADUs be based on a by neighborhood basis. I think it should be every part of the city needs to step up and take responsibility for creating more housing available in Bellingham.
Eve? Thank you, Iris.
I totally agree with you, Iris. I think that's a real good point. And I don't think we should limit these ADUs in any neighborhood. But the thing that bothers me the most is when you look at that super report that came from the Seahome Board and their investigation as to what we have out there right now. The city says there's 2 units out there that have been approved. The Seahome Board comes back with 27 illegals out there. So when you get an application for an ADU, what do you do with it? It's already, there could be this diversion of units that are really impacting improperly a house. So I've always kind of leaned towards the conditional use permit. Hopefully that would involve the neighbors that an ADU is going to be built or put in there. And this will bring in neighbors. You could have 3 of them within the same block that are illegal. First of all, nowhere in this entire booklet do I see anything about enforcement. There's nothing written other than the fact that the rental registration program will magically take care of this. Now, I've got a question for staff on the rental registration. How many illegal ADUs have been discovered since the program has been implemented?
My understanding, rental registration is not identifying illegal units.
Well, it says that in here.
Rental registration is looking at life and safety issues. Kurt may want to speak to this more.
It says that it says right in this packet in the matrix that the rental registration program will identify the illegal ADUs. Okay, that aside, there's no enforcement program here. What are we going to do with all? We don't even know how many illegals are out there. We don't know how to discover them. But when I see a matrix like this presented by the Seahome Board, that they found 27 of them just walking up and down the street, I'm very concerned about that. And here we're putting another program on top of a program that's basically failed. So where do we go?
With regards to the list of the Seahome neighborhood, we haven't received, at least not to my knowledge, any official complaint of those. We've received a list, and we have said from day one, we've talked about illegal dwelling units, that if people submit complaints, we will look into those and enforce on those.
Thank you.
Iris and Lisa?
Yeah, I wanted to respond to, it often seems like this commission goes right to talking about how will we enforce the folks who are outside of whatever regulation is set up. And I think it seems befuddling to me particularly to look at this map and see that all of these white areas are areas where a detached ADU is currently illegal. Of course there's going to be a lot of illegal ADUs. That's like most of Bellingham, and it seems like if we focus so much on enforcement versus how do we incentivize a program that is healthy, where it's easy to build, where you're doing something you're building in a way that matches the community needs, and where the instructions are clear and equitable across the board versus, for folks who live in every neighborhood, then that we don't have to have as much enforcement, and it doesn't seem like a good place to start the conversation.
Thank you. And Lisa, I want to get to your comment, but I agree to a certain degree that to me, enforcement is a citywide issue across many ordinances, and it's not relevant directly to the topic at hand. That's just my opinion. We can't let the city turn into Roman city-states and say, yeah, this neighborhood gets it and this neighborhood doesn't. And this neighborhood gets to decide their own fate and this neighborhood doesn't. I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. I think the tone of this is wrong, of that element. I think we should be saying Happy Valley has stepped up and is willing to sacrifice themselves, in a sense, to see if this is a good idea. And if it works, then we should talk about the whole city. We shouldn't pick off neighborhoods one at a time. If it doesn't work, then maybe it doesn't work citywide. But I see Happy Valley as a test case for a discussion about the whole city. So I totally agree. I'm really opposed to the idea of us coming back 26 times to ask each neighborhood if they think it's okay. I don't think that's the right solution long term. But that's not what we're talking about today. Everyone be aware, we're not talking about implementing this citywide or picking off individual neighborhoods today. We're talking about just Happy Valley and then these general changes. And so I think it's more of like a messaging thing, maybe, the way you guys are presenting this. It really makes it sound like we get to go through the Happy Valley process 26 times. And I think it should be messaged as Happy Valley as a test case so we can talk about the whole city. That's just my opinion.
This is of staff again.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Just to be clear, in this process, if it was the direction of the commission to recommend staff to incorporate a citywide implementation of this policy, we can.
We could, yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, just to clarify, this wasn't the part, this is in the modification, so I thought that I was saying that we should allow the single-family zoned areas and then scratch the on a per neighborhood basis line. I am suggesting that we implement detached ADUs
Citywide at
Yeah,
this
that
time.
was
Okay.
Sorry,
I misunderstood that, yeah.
No, that's
And
100%
you're
what I
right,
was
Garrett. We
trying
can
to
have
say.
that discussion, and if the body made that recommendation, then that would be a recommendation that would go forward.
Well, I think that's just a big part of this, we have this open, look, we're 2 years working on this, and we have nothing. So, we have something, but it's not much, and that's 2 years. So we're gonna do a pilot program, everything's out here right now, we have comment. I think we should work towards coming up with an ordinance that's gonna last for 10, 15, 20 years until it needs to be modified again, and not just push it out.
Okay, well, that's a different discussion than,
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't.
citywide versus a pilot program, what kind of drove that decision-making process?
Well, I think it was a result of all the discussions that we've had and wanting to enter into this in a measured way and recognizing that we do have an issue with illegal units. And so we've got areas now where, pretty much anywhere attached ADUs are allowed. certain zone detached ADUs are allowed. We've got a neighborhood that wants to try detached ADUs in a single-family zone. Let's start with that. If the commission feels strongly about something different, you are free to recommend that, and we'll support it in front of the council. So, yes, we want you to have a discussion about the scope of this thing. It's not just what staff has proposed. It's what you think the right thing to do for the community is. And if that's a broader scope change, then let's talk about it. This is the time to do that.